Just as a point of order, since it is 4:30, I would like to point out two things. One, our president will not be here tonight, but we are anticipating a transition. So I just want to point out that while we don't have a quorum, so we can't start yet, we'll be looking to our vice president, Liz Richard, to officiate the first few steps of the meeting until the election.
Sounds good.
Hey, Keith.
Hey, hello.
Do we now have a quorum?
We do.
All right.
Give me one moment, Liz.
You need a minute?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Is that me?
No, stop him. Embarrassed.
Okay,
Okay,
yes.
all right. I call this meeting to order. Let's go ahead and do a roll call.
Crystal,
Here?
Rosendahl,
Here.
Graham, Harris, Richard.
Here. All right, welcome to our board meeting, September 6th, 2022. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have anyone here tonight for public comments?
No,
Do not. Okay. Let's move on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes or additions that we are not aware of?
I move that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Second?
There's been a move to approve it in a second. Let's call for a vote.
Crystal,
Aye.
Rosendahl,
Aye.
Richard.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved with that. We'll move on to our action items. Ken is going to take this first one of Board of Director reorganization.
Yeah, we'll do it in the opposite order with the board's forbearance. Just unfortunately, Marie couldn't be with us tonight, and she figured with the transition that would work out okay. But having said that, we do have a nice gift for Marie, and I would like to personally take a moment just to point out that not only once, but twice Marie has been willing to come to the Erboces and serve a significant term with us. She's invested tremendous time and tremendous personal commitment to this Erboces and to our mission and vision. And we are both deeply grateful for what she's done, and we will sorely miss her. So I just wanted to put that on the record and express my gratitude for what she's done before the board undertakes reorganizing and electing new officers.
Excuse me, we did not approve the consent agenda.
Yeah, we usually do a motion, so I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. I apologize for that. I'm accustomed to the consent being part of the approval of the agenda, but I understand that. So call for a vote.
Crystal,
Aye.
Rosendahl,
Aye.
Richard.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, Ken, are you finished with that action item?
I'm finished with the recognition part. It will be up to the acting board chair to officiate the elections process.
Okay, so we need to fill our president position. And after we do that, we'll see where we kind of fall out if we have to go ahead and nominate other officers.
I would like to make a motion. I'd like to a motion that we approve Liz Richard as our board president.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any need for discussion?
One point of privilege.
Yes.
Should this be voted affirmatively, I'll point out that the vice president would be taking the president's seat, so you should follow with an election of the vice president.
Thank you. Okay, call for a vote.
We have Chelsea joining us now.
Is Chelsea on?
Yeah.
Looks like it.
Chelsea, welcome. We're on our first action item. Can you hear?
Okay, yes,
All right. And we are nominating for the position of president. We had a motion from Bethany to nominate Liz Richard and a second from Keith, and we are just about to call for a vote, but do you have any discussion or questions?
no. Thank you for the update.
Okay, we'll call for a vote.
Criswell,
Aye.
Rosendahl,
Aye.
Harris,
Aye,
Richard. Can she vote?
Aye, yes.
We'll take that
All
up.
right, and because of that position being filled now, the vice president's seat is vacant, so do we have any motions?
I would like to make a motion that Keith Criswell be our vice president.
Do we have a second?
second,
Okay, Chelsea seconds that. Any discussion, Keith? Are you willing to serve in that position?
I'm willing to serve, but if someone else feels they need to step up, I'm not opposing.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, let's call for a vote on that.
Criswell,
I vote for myself or abstain, I don't know.
I think you vote.
Just say aye.
Rosendahl,
Aye.
Willie.
Harris,
aye,
Richard,
Aye. Okay, is that, did I see we had someone else join?
yes, John Graham is here with us now.
Hi, John. All right, so that passes. And our other officers are filled, actually.
Right.
So President Liz Richard, Vice President Keith Criswell, and we can now move on to action item B. Dan Snowberger's going to take that.
Thank you, members of the board. I wanted to first apologize. There's a number of items that we anticipate seeing on the agenda tonight that due to some changes in state publication, we're going to be able to touch on them instead of going into great detail. This particular item was in case the school performance framework and district performance frameworks were public, and we could actually discuss if any of those warranted a request for reconsideration. At this time, those school performance frameworks are not public until Thursday, September 8th. So we are unable to go into that particular item this evening. We did receive embargoed release on Friday, and school leaders are currently reviewing those and looking at them and considering data that they might have. There is one complication this year in that the state board, through board rule, has taken the right to request reconsideration if a school has less than 90% participation, and that certainly is a challenge. Overall state participation is at 88%, so actually even our state underperformed that 90% total. So at this time, even with that, we really can't discuss any further a need for reconsideration.
Just want to take one minor point here. Because we can't yet discuss ratings because they're not official and they're not released until Thursday, it doesn't change the fact that the state deadline for any action to contest a request for reconsider is September 15th. There's a remote chance, I'm not putting it forth at this time, but there's a remote chance that we might ask the board for an emergency meeting with a single agenda item. If we do, we'll do the proper notice and work through our new president, Liz, to get that scheduled, and Annette would schedule it. But our hands are somewhat tied. We can't talk about any kind of reconsideration at this point, and by the time our next meeting rolls around, it will have been too late. So there is a remote possibility that there'll be a quick exercise.
I have a question. Ken, do you attend the superintendent updates for BOCES directors and superintendents?
I do not.
Commissioner updates?
I do not.
Because I'm sure that's a big item of discussion, and maybe Dan could share with you how to get into those meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is one scheduled for next week that I'll be attending, so certainly if that comes up, I'll be happy to report back.
Yeah. I've always had our operations director attend those.
Oh, I see. Excellent. Great. All right. Okay, any other questions or discussion on that? There'll be no action taken tonight. All right. By the way, welcome, John. Glad you're here. We'll move on to 5 discussion items, and the first one is the performance update. I don't know if you want to add more, but I believe you may, Dan. So go
Yep.
ahead.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. Again, we can't discuss school performance frameworks and district performance frameworks. However, we can talk about CMAS. CMAS does include the state administered reading and math assessment at grades 3 through 8, as well as the PSAT and SAT at grades 9, 10, and 11. So I've provided you some detailed reports of those results. A couple highlights. I did want to point out, interesting that the state chose to compare this year's data to 2 years ago, or actually I guess it would be 3 years ago, pre-pandemic, 2019. And so if you look in the far 3 columns of the spreadsheets I provided, and they're broken down by grade level, they're also an overall for schools. You'll notice that, at the state level, there was significant regression in reading and mathematics. I'm happy to report that our regression was less, which is kind of sad that we're talking that way, but the state overall dropped 2.6 points in reading proficiency when compared to 2019. We actually increased by 0.8% during that same period of time. And in math, the state dropped 3.2 percentage points. We did drop 3.5, so we definitely have work to do in the area of mathematics. Do want to do a shout out for CPA Middle School. CPA Middle School actually increased by 5.8% or percentage points when compared to those 2 years. So CPA Middle School certainly had some pretty strong growth. One of their grade levels actually increased by 12.8% proficiency during that time. So in very challenging times, wanted to certainly recognize that growth. Again, biggest challenge overall, most of our online schools bend over backwards to create testing sites across our state. They really work hard to make sure that no parent has to drive more than 50 miles to get their child to a testing location. And even with that, we have about 44% participation. And so it really becomes challenging. The state does, by statute, offer parents the right to opt out. And I think our online parents know that. And obviously with gas prices and everything else increasing, 50 miles is a long way to drive to have your child test if that's not a test that you believe is important to your child. And so we're continuing to work on helping our parents recognize the value of that. But again, we still recognize that it is a parent's choice. And we'll continue to do so. Even at PSAT and SAT, I wanted to point out that participation is even lower than our 3rd through 8th grade. And sometimes people will argue that, well, those are college-bound tests and therefore they have greater value. That's not what's panning out in our student population, nor is it panning out that way in the state. So we see lower participation actually in the high school assessments than we do at the elementary assessments. So happy to answer any particular questions or pass it on.
One point I'd just like to add to that, because participation is becoming higher and higher stakes in the state, even though parents have the statutory right to opt out. It would be great if the state and or the CD and or the state board finds their way to permit online standardized assessments for these remote communities and these online communities that are online already for a reason, it would certainly increase significantly our participation rate, even though the online community is never going to be the high participation rate. It would be a step in the right direction. So that's something we may want to take up at some point, but not today.
I think it's important to note local assessments, over 80% of our families participate in the local school-based assessments that they do find value in.
Stephanie?
So I'm curious, has there been any conversation with CDE regarding the lack of integrity between we have this law that says it's okay and we're still going to penalize the education service providers?
There has been dialogue. There has been annual dialogue because it comes up every year. Two things happen. One, I get a call each year from the CDE saying, gee, your participation's low. At which point we have a discussion about yes, and we encourage people to participate where they would like to, but we in no way infringe on their statutory right to opt out of assessment if that's what they choose to do. So we have a balancing act to deal with here as well. And this year, the CDE has implemented a new policy which penalizes schools and districts further for the parents exercising their statutory rights to opt out of assessments by saying that you can't request reconsideration of your scores if you have a low participation rate. Well, that's directly penalizing schools and districts for parents exercising their statutory right to opt out. And we had a conversation about that specific point with the CDE this year. The rule is what it is at this moment, but it is an inappropriate position to try and penalize schools and districts for parents exercising their statutory rights, and we'll continue to walk that line appropriately, rewarding those parents, not rewarding the parents, recognizing those parents' right to opt out while encouraging participation.
So this is a little dated, and I apologize because my children are all out of school now, but there was once upon a time a robust conversation around the opportunity to present other data in lieu of as proof of proficiency and growth and all those other items. Has that been taken away from us?
And I don't know.
If we have less than 90%, we can present no alternate data, is the state board rule as it exists today.
We can present it in our UIP for our improvement plan, but we can't for our framework score.
We can't seek a change in performance framework.
That really is that request to reconsider process.
Yeah, and again, I'm dating myself, so this is almost a decade-old conversation, but we could do it once upon a time, and what I'm hearing is that has also been rescinded.
This is a new rule this year that you can't file a request to reconsider if your participation is below 90%.
And no alternative data.
That alternative data is part of the
Sure.
presentation
Yeah.
of the request to reconsider.
Yeah. Okay.
But are you aware of any legal activity or cohorts of schools that want to take it to the state board because it's against statute? Even though the board passed it, it doesn't follow statute. Do you know of any action right now, or is it something we're looking at for the future?
To be completely frank, to the extent that there are groups that want to oppose it, we would certainly want to press the issue. We would certainly recognize their rights to opt out, but I'm unaware of any dialogue at this time. But would be happy to take that conversation, offline in individual conversations. If someone knows someone that might be interested or want to have further dialogue on that, be happy to.
Okay.
Does our legal counsel want to?
Anything? Go ahead.
I don't have anything else to add. I would say that a group like the EAC would maybe be somewhere where that conversation could be started. But as far as I know right now, there's not a huge groundswell or conversation surrounding that topic.
For ahead, John.
I know that District 49 was working with CDE and others to try to develop local accountability measures that would enhance what we're talking about, but nothing has been officially bought off on by CDE. This is something we keep pushing for, because there's more than CMAS to show what students are achieving and the outcomes that they are seeking.
Right. It would be nice if they could better align with the graduation requirements and the different levels of those. So we can talk about that at another time, I guess. Dan, is there anything else on that one?
No, again, just if you have any questions as you review that data, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll be happy to respond.
Okay, the next one is the UIP review plan.
Yep. Again, with the delay in the release of UIPs or of SPFs and DPFs, it did create a challenge in the UIP process. Part of the UIP process is certainly to respond to your data. And since that had not been released at this time, we do not have our UIPs. Again, similar, the state, while they delayed the release of SPFs, they have not delayed the UIP deadline. So unified improvement plans are still due by October 17th. So we are going to need to ask the board to consider those UIPs when they see them in October and grant approval for those to be submitted. We can certainly try to get those to you prior to publication of the agenda to give you some time to review. And again, always leave the door open if you have a question on one of those. We're working very closely with our schools as they develop those, so we'll be able to answer questions that you may have regarding those individual plans. So again, while we don't have plans to present tonight, we do need to still ask that you be on track to approve so that they can be submitted within the timeline that the state has set. CPA, Colorado Preparatory Academy, and Pikes Peak Online has volunteered to do a pilot. The current UIP process is cumbersome and not necessarily helpful in really diving into the data to the degree that one would need to make improvement. They are piloting a new process, and I think CPA has been very public about their concern about the format, that they really want to continue to look at improvement of their schools. However, the process doesn't necessarily lend itself. They volunteered for a pilot, and again, that pilot is currently still not available by CDE. So CDE has waived their requirement for October 17th UIP and given them till December. So in October, you will see all of our schools except CPA and PPOS, and then you will probably see CPA and PPOS's plan in November. So just to give you a little heads up on that, we encourage them to participate. We think it's a good process and a good chance for us to be at the ground level of potentially redeveloping the whole unified improvement planning process. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Nicole has posted something, I can't read it though, can you?
It just says CPA and PPOS are in the UIP pilot and don't have access. So kind of what
They
Leanne just said.
still don't have access.
She said it first, though.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicole.
Okay. And Dan, thank you for your responsiveness. When you say be ready to pass that in October, is it easier or best for us, if we have a question, to email ahead of time to you?
It would be helpful if you want to email Ken and I, and again, we'll be happy to get those answers and respond to you so that we can make sure that those plans are in a position where you feel comfortable approving them.
Let me just speak to that and just put a little, as fine a point on it as I can. We know that the October 4th meeting, normally we would give it to you in one meeting and ask you to vote in the next. We are unable to do that this year unless you want to call a special meeting after the 4th. So we will get it to you as early before the 4th as possible, hopefully more than a week. But please do ask any questions, anything prior to that meeting on the 4th that you can, to vet it as much as possible. And then in that meeting, we'll handle any remaining questions and we'll ask for a vote if the board's willing. If the board is not willing, we will have to ask the board to call a special meeting.
Any board member questions on that? Okay. Let's move on to C, new scorecard process. Dan's done a lot of work here, so go ahead, Dan.
Okay, thank you. So I shared kind of a basic sample last month to make sure that we were on the right track. At that point, you'd given us a nod of you were comfortable with that direction. Tonight, we bring you really the complete system that we're proposing. We're proposing the scorecards, which would include student information, be semester-based. Again, we've regurgitated information sometimes multiple months in a row, which sometimes feels like double jeopardy to schools. Like, we took that in August, but we're seeing it in October, and then we're seeing it again in December because that's the most recent data. So by doing semester scorecards, we're going to have fresh student data each time for us to really be able to track performance and growth overall. We do have not only student aspects, but also operations. So I want to just touch base on those as we go through. The other aspect of the accountability system, if you will, for the board would be progress reports. And those progress reports would look at operational matters, but also open up some lines of communication between our schools and our board regarding their reflection on their scorecard. And so quarter one scorecards, if you look at those, I believe they're first after the agenda item. You'll see that the operational items are still scored. So Annette is still tracking financial compliance. Suzanne is still tracking special ed compliance for our schools. We're still tracking operational expectations. So we have rubrics and details that our schools have in advance of what we're looking for, so that, again, those aren't surprises. Each of those areas under finance were areas that Annette developed based upon her experience in kind of tracking the success of our schools in their financial realm. So those are rubrics that Annette will score each quarter. Operational expectations, again, are continuing to comply with all of the deadlines in our data submission timeline, making sure that schools are meeting their expectations so that we as Erboces can meet our expectations to the state. And then on the school progress report, you'll notice special programs. So Suzanne has a rubric that will look at our IEPs in compliance, our 504 plans, our healthcare plans, or all of those special programs aspects in compliance each quarter, because obviously we want to make sure that our schools are meeting the letter of the law and being compliant with those plans. So quarter one and quarter three progress reports really track similar operational data, but it also provides a school a chance to respond to their last scorecard. So scorecards, for instance, the August scorecards you received last board meeting, we'll make sure our principals can respond to those on our first quarterly progress report. So they will look at those, give you feedback on things that they're doing, things that they're working on to address any areas that maybe they're not satisfied with or areas that you may not be satisfied with. Also gives our staff a chance to comment on progress that schools are achieving, and also a chance for schools to give you some highlights. So we really want to make sure that our schools get a chance to communicate the amazing things that they're doing. We know we try to do that as often as we can, but this provides a formal opportunity for them to share that. So those progress reports would be that opportunity. Again, our scorecards, we've got 3 different versions. Our homeschool enrichment obviously is slim based upon the fact that they don't necessarily track academic information, but certainly are tracking participation and engagement, parent satisfaction, and all of those other operational expectations. I know my version printed a little weird, so I don't know if yours did as well. Yes.
Before you go further, on the different indicators, can you just run through the abbreviations quickly?
Sure. So the indicators, are you talking the other indicators, the operational side?
Yeah, the operation overview. Just, I think I know all of them, but can you just say them all?
Sure. So under finance, we have audit, so their participation in the audit process. Their budget, are they maintaining their budget? Annette, correct me if I get any of these wrong. Cash flow, are they maintaining their cash flow so that they can meet obligations? Financial transparency, have they met all of the requirements of the state and displaying their financial transparency? Grants, are they meeting the obligations that they take on when they accept a grant? Invoices, are they submitting invoices on time? Those invoices are for, I believe, a variety of reasons. Quarterly reports, are they getting their quarterly reports in on time? And finally, stewardship. So are they using taxpayer money wisely? So any questions on those? I think Annette probably is best suited to chime in on. On operational expectations, the reporting compliance, REP compliance is reporting compliance, assessment compliance. So schools have a number of deadlines on meeting, getting their accommodations noted, placing their order for tests, getting student data in so that they're prepared to assess their students. So all of those assessment compliance information or assessment compliance responsibilities fall in that one. On site visit, the prior visit, we're sharing the score that they received, so both the points earned as well as the points possible. For instance, on the first elementary scorecard, you'll see 255 out of 311, so they could have earned 311 points, they earned 255. And then you'll see the most recent site visit, and in this case, in this example, they earned 321 out of 335, and that was green because of the percent of points that they earned. Special programs, you'll see IEP compliance, you'll see other plans, which would be 504, ALPs, advanced learning plans, ELL plans, health plans. You'll see parent feedback. I think that's something that we're really trying to focus on this year, is making sure we're hearing from our parents. We're offering a number of school options and a number of educational options, and we want to make sure our parents are finding those to be meeting their expectations. And then for high schools in particular, also giving students a chance to give feedback on their special education and special programs process. And then governance is their board policies. Do they have their board policies in place? Do they hold their open meetings as required by law? And then just like with our ESPs, are they meeting the contract? Are they complying with the contract that they've entered into between our BOCES and their organization?
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was on the same page.
Yeah, no problem. And any of those that you feel like could have a better abbreviation, I'm certainly open to that.
Webster's Dictionary.
So again, you'll see the scorecards. There is a homeschool enrichment, there is a elementary middle, and then there's a high school. Primary difference in the high school and elementary middle is the completion rate. They all have attendance or online engagement. They all have assessment participation. So we're tracking their participation in their local assessments. And then at high school, we're also tracking course completion or completion rate. So at the semester 2 scorecard, that's graduation rate. At semester 1 scorecard, that's completion of courses. So trying to capture kind of a snapshot of what that graduation rate may look like. Any other questions? I could continue to talk about these, but I know you've had a chance to look at them, so.
I'm good.
These look good.
And
I agree. Thank you for all the work on that.
Oh, you're welcome. And I do want you to know that we did share these with our principals at our leadership meeting here. Many principals were instrumental over the summer as we talked about their data and looking at our last scorecards, really in developing these. So certainly they do reflect input from our school leaders. I think that's important that this system be helpful to them as well as to our board.
I like the color codes.
Call what?
I like the color codes.
Okay, like the color codes, good. Good.
All right, if there's no further discussion.
Oh, you know what, Liz, I am sorry. You had brought up in an email, and I do want to clarify the schedule of these. So we're proposing the following, and it's because of when the quarter ends. If the quarter ends the first day of the month, it's hard for us to necessarily make sure we get all the data processed without error when we normally publish our agenda before the end of the month prior. So we are proposing that quarter one be done in November. The first quarter ends middle of October. So we do believe we can turn that one around in November. Semester one scorecard, we're proposing February. A couple of our schools actually end their semester in the first week of January. So it gives us that time to gather their data and ensure that it's entered into the system. Quarter three is May. Some of our schools actually end their first quarter or third quarter, the first week of April. And so it would be hard to try to process that in April. And then with the August or with the June board meeting being the first week of June, some of our schools end that first week of June. And so to process the semester two scorecard, because of how our board meetings fall that first week, it's really challenging to try to do otherwise, but certainly open to feedback on that proposed schedule.
Yeah, I had offered some feedback there just from an administrative experience. It's hard to carry over data through the summer, but I understand the timing better now. And if you had the feedback of our leadership, then I think that's sufficient. I was just concerned about the summer layover of data and not being able to do action items off of that. But if the leadership is fine with it, I'm great with whatever you guys decide.
One note to add, if it would help the board, it would be beneficial. We do end the year the first week in June or so the June meeting wouldn't be possible. We normally lay off of a July meeting here, but it would certainly be possible for us to produce the July information and share it with the board and then discuss it in August while it's still fresh on everyone's mind.
And Liz, to your point, this data will be available instantly as soon as the data is provided in the folder. So principals will have this probably the second week of June. So they will go off for the summer knowing their scorecard because again, this system does not require hand calculating. It will be calculated as the data files are dropped into the folder. So they will automatically populate. So board certainly, as to Ken's point, could have access to the scorecard sooner, just not be able to actually discuss them as a board until your next meeting. But certainly we could get them to you a lot sooner.
That's good. As long as the leadership has that data that they can work on and think on, and then if we have access to it, that's great. But if they have it, that's the most important piece.
Great.
All right. Thank you for all that hard work, Dan.
Thank you.
We're on to the enrollment update, and we all received that. But Dan, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll just share real quickly that, again, we're gathering feedback on Friday. This last Friday, we were a little slow in getting some of them, so we're still gathering some from last Friday's numbers. This will grow a little bit. We still have schools. Many of our homeschool enrichment programs are still enrolling students. Some of those just started this week. So I do expect it to continue to grow, and we will give you an enrollment update in October, obviously, in comparison to budget and RFT that we have versus what we had planned for. But again, we're seeing some really bright spots. We're seeing some schools that are a little lagging behind from in the past. So we're just continuing to monitor that very closely.
What was your FTE count last year?
Say again?
What was our FTE last year?
Oh, what was our final FTE? Do you know, Annette?
4158.
Okay.
Did you get that? And to that point, just a point of operations here, as has historically been the case and will be the case in the future, I will ask Annette to give you the enrollment updates so that we have some transition of what we've heard and what we've actually vetted and can talk about how it compares to budget. So I know this was a little different this month, but we'll return to the other process because I think it's a better governance.
Thank you. All right, excuse me. Ken has some policy to review for first reading.
Yes, the one sentence strike is what started this because we had a conflict between two policies last month, and so we offered the strike. But after the board packet went out, but before the board meeting, we had a chance to meet with council, and they suggested that we take this opportunity to reconcile this policy with new law. That specific law being the Colorado Healthy Families and Workplaces Act. Certainly was relevant and timely. So we ran this through Miller Farmer Law. Josh did a good job of trying to reconcile this policy with what the current state is. And so please view this as the first reading again, because there's real substantive change here, but it is fully reconciled with the new act that was passed this year in the legislature as well. Were there any specific questions or concerns with the draft as sent? We won't ask for a vote until next month. Nope. Okay.
Sorry, I was muted. No question. That policy looks good, thank you. And now Ken is on letter F, board retreat.
I wrote this big enough so you, go ahead.
I haven't had a problem getting off mute as well. I didn't know if you wanted to include parent in that list of family. I didn't see that.
Where?
I said related by blood.
Yeah, it defines what the family is related by blood, so it would include parents.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
I thought that was part that was, yeah, you're right. Thank you. Thanks for correcting me.
Appreciate the careful scrutiny. That's what we need.
Oh, that was good, Chelsea, thanks. Okay, now to the board retreat, Ken.
Yeah, so we discussed last month and nailed down the venue that we were hoping to get. We will have the agenda, the proposed agenda from the facilitator probably tomorrow or the next day. We'll run it by Liz as well to see if there's any last strokes, and then share it with the board prior to the retreat. That retreat is planned for September 24th. It's coming up fast.
It's
23rd.
It's actually the 23rd in 2022.
Did I? Oh my goodness. I did.
And you did it really big too.
I did it really big too. So I'm not sure where that happened because we actually went over this, but my apologies. Take those really big numbers and change 24 to 23 and change the year 2021 to 2022. I clearly cut and pasted and then didn't go back and edit the last time. My apologies. It is Friday, September the 23rd, not the 24th, at 9 to noon. And we will have a photographer again. And I'm going to double check and make sure that it's posted properly, but I'm sure it will be. It's at the same place we did it last year, so most of you have been there before, but if you haven't, it's at the Hideaway on Walker Road. It's very near the Erboces here. And I very much appreciate everyone being willing to do it again. We do have, Ross Izzard did agree to facilitate again this year, and we appreciate that. So hopefully everyone can be here that can be here. I know, Keith, that's a long drive, so you...
Plan on being there.
Oh, awesome.
Are you going to Zoom it too, or no?
We have not Zoomed it.
Okay, that's all.
Keith, if you need a place overnight, you're welcome.
Oh, awesome.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
All right, good. Looking forward to that very much. All right, board reports. I believe.
Any questions?
Any questions about those, or hey, do we vote to approve those, or?
No, they're just informational. If you have questions, this is your opportunity to ask them.
Okay, thank you. All right. I formally adjourn our meeting. Guess I can't move to do that, but.
Finance report, too.
Yeah, that's attached.
5:14.
Record.
There you go. Awesome,
I
thank
like the
you.
new president.
It's just a short agenda.
I'm just glad you didn't nominate me while I was absent.
That's why you weren't. Sorry I'm not there in person. I'm more time talking than so.
Sorry you weren't feeling well, but thank you for being here.
Oh, absolutely. I'm trying to never miss from this point forward, but
I'll be here in a second.